Thanks for being here with us tonight. The floor is yours.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I've prepared a speech, and with your permission, I'd like to give that and then leave it open for questions, comments, or any further detail.
Your presentation is at your discretion.
Thank you. When people hear Treasurer's Office, they think of money, and while that's certainly part of what we do, it only scratches the surface. Our office is responsible for critical financial operations that keep the city running every single day. With just 8 full-time employees, we manage 3 divisions: Treasury, Collections, Payroll and Benefits, and Parking. Each division plays a vital role, and together they support residents, visitors, employees, retirees, and every department across the city. Despite our size, the scale of our work is significant and growing. Let me begin with the Treasury and Collections division. In a single year, our office produces and collects over 230,000 bills. That includes 48,000 real estate bills, 132 water and sewer bills, 4,000 personal property bills, over 42,000 excise tax bills already issued this year alone, and thousands more from parking, airport operations, and other sources. And that number continues to grow as new vehicles are registered, properties change hands, and services are used. Now here's the reality. Only 2 employees are primarily responsible for collecting on all 230,000 plus bills. They do this through a combination of in-house processing and coordination with third-party vendors like lockbox services and deputy collectors. But even when payments are made externally, every transaction still flows through our office for processing, reconciliation, and accountability. And collecting is just one part of their role. These employees also process and produce vendor payments for all city departments on a weekly basis, handle researching and processing taxpayer refunds, produce municipal lien certificates as requested, research and certify compliance for permits and licenses, enter abatements and adjustments, and process departmental cash turnovers. In short, they are the operational backbone of the city's financial transactions. We don't just send bills, we manage the entire life cycle of city revenue. Supporting them is our cash management function, handled by one individual who's responsible for reconciling 37 city bank accounts, monitoring and managing daily cash flow, ensuring sufficient funds are available for payroll and vendor obligations, and preparing documentation for the city's annual external audit. This role is essential to maintaining financial stability and transparency. At the leadership level, the Assistant Treasurer Collector and I oversee the entire division, as well as take a strategic approach to revenue collection. We are currently managing over 35 active land court cases related to back taxes, one case stemming as far back as 2007. This year, we introduced tax lien notification letters and expanded our use of payment agreements to work with residents through these difficult and sometimes surprising situations. The results speak for themselves. As of July 24, the city had over $3.8 million in outstanding tax liens. Since implementing these strategies, we've recovered nearly $950,000. That's nearly $1 million returned to the city. We've also strengthened our compliance review process for permits and licenses, ensuring that outstanding balances are addressed before approvals are granted. This protects the city's financial interests while still working collaboratively with applicants. Additionally, we've taken new steps in the lien enforcement. Last fall, for the first time, we issued over 1,600 water lien notices and placed over 1,200 liens on tax bills. Looking ahead, our priorities include strengthening cash control policies across all departments, preparing for a real estate auction of 17 city-owned parcels, and continuing to resolve land court cases and recover outstanding revenue. Now moving on to payroll and benefits. This division supports more than 1,700 employees and more than 1,000 retirees with just 2 staff members. One employee manages the entire payroll operation, biweekly payroll processing, federal and state tax filings, including quarterly and annual returns, W-2 and 1095 preparation and distribution, and benefits and insurance reconciliation. The other focuses entirely on benefits administration, onboarding new employees, supporting retirees before and after retirement, managing enrollments across multiple benefit plans, and assisting employees and retirees through major life events, both positive and difficult. This is highly detailed, people-centered work that requires both technical expertise and compassion. Over the past year, we've made meaningful improvements. We secured $20,000 in wellness credits at no cost to the city and used those funds to host our first ever employee health fair, creating a new opportunity for engagement and education. We expanded benefit offerings to include legal insurance and pet insurance, while also enhancing life insurance options to cover spouses and dependents. We are in the process of implementing a benefits management software at no cost to the city, an improvement in efficiencies that would have otherwise cost over $30,000. We also partnered with local businesses to provide employee discounts, launched a wellness newsletter to promote healthy habits, and transitioned to electronic W-2s for faster, more efficient access. And importantly, we identified and corrected over $300,000 in payroll benefit discrepancies, ensuring compliance, approving accuracy, and safeguarding employee compensation. One of the most critical responsibilities within this division is managing the Health Insurance Trust Fund. Health insurance is one of the fastest growing costs facing municipalities today. In my role as trustee of the fund, I work closely alongside the Public Employee Committee with support from the Mayor's Office and Human Resources to ensure its effective oversight and long-term sustainability. With guidance from our health insurance consultants, we partnered with a pharmacy benefit consultant who led a comprehensive pharmacy procurement and implemented targeted program improvements, efforts projected to generate over $2.6 million in savings over the next 3 years. We've also transitioned Medicare and eligible retirees to Medicare plans, introduced an employee health insurance opt-out program, and implemented a new health insurance plan that meets federal affordability standards under the ACA. And we continue to evaluate additional options, including a high-deductible plan with health saving accounts. Our goal is long-term sustainability, ensuring we can continue to offer strong benefits while managing costs responsibly. Now let's put our work into perspective. The city's total general fund budget for FY26 is about $181 million. The Treasurer's Office operates on just $751,000. That's only 0.41% of the total budget. And yet, from that small share, we support nearly every financial function in the city. About 75% of our budget goes to personnel, and the remaining 25% covers our operational expenses. That means our entire operating expense budget is just $192,000. Now here's where it gets even tighter. Postage alone, which supports every department in the city, accounts for about 60% of the amount, and it continues to rise. Tax title foreclosure is the next largest expense, making up 26%. So when you look at what's left, only about 14% of our operational expense budget supports everything else we do. We are operating lean and have been for years. Since losing a position in FY21, we have not fully recovered staffing levels, yet the workload has only increased. Finally, the parking division. This is one of the most resource-constrained areas in our office. With just one dedicated employee, this division handles parking enforcement, meter maintenance, garage and lot upkeep, cleaning, including hazardous materials, vehicle maintenance, and daily mail operations for City Hall. This is an incredibly demanding role that often goes unnoticed. Despite these challenges, the division generates between $140,000 and $160,000 annually. In FY26, we offset $120,000 of expenses with parking revenue, reducing reliance on the general fund to just 0.05% of the total city budget. Still, the system faces real challenges: outdated software, manual processes, limited data capabilities, and staffing constraints. To address this, we are actively working to modernize the division by implementing mobile payment systems, updating parking rates and fee structures, and restructuring ordinances to improve efficiency and revenue. This work is supported by collaboration across multiple departments, including the Mayor's Office, DPW, IT, and Community Development. As we move forward, our focus is clear: modernize our systems, strengthen our processes, support our employees, and protect the financial health of this city. Because at the end of the day, the Treasurer's Office is not just about money. It's about accountability, it's about service, and it's about making sure the city continues to operate effectively today and into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer Horn. I'm going to defer to committee members in just a second, but really quickly, you mentioned some numbers there at the beginning, 230,000 bills annually, 48,000 real estate bills. Could you repeat the other ones so I can write them down real quick?
4,000 personal property bills. And just in between March 2nd and April 16th, we have sent out 42,000 excise tax bills. That's only 2 commitments, and there's typically anywhere from 8 to 10 commitments a year.
Thank you. Questions from committee members? You don't have line items for which is fine. It's at your discretion, but you've maybe opened yourself up to maybe some more general questions. So we'll try to keep it on topic to what was just mentioned in that presentation. Do we have any questions from committee members?
I have a question.
Councilor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You said that we had, in 2024, there was $3.8 million in unpaid taxes
In tax.
or delinquent taxes. And we've recovered almost $1 million is that since 2024?
That's since July of '24, yes.
July of 24. And is there a plan for increasing that?
Yes. Right now, there's really only myself and the assistant treasurer collector who's able to even dedicate time towards back tax collection. It's very heavily reliant on the land court process, which does not move very quickly.
Yeah, I know.
So yes, we would love to. We're hoping to get out more notices to residents about what they might potentially owe. However, it does fall back on the priority list when we have to operate the window, cut checks, everything else.
So when you have someone who is delinquent in their taxes, what is the process for that? I mean, do you send a reminder, and then, I mean, what's the process for through the final collection of that?
So you receive your bill. Typically, next comes a demand notice. We give you 14 days to pay the demand, and then we're allowed to legally put a lien.
Okay.
Because the tax laws changed, and there's very strict deadlines around what decisions you need to make. We have not been moving those balances into tax lien status immediately. What we've decided to do is send out lien letters notifying residents that you owe this money. We offer payment plans and give them other guidance. We also provide them like what could potentially happen should they not pay the balance. Remind them that the city has the right to foreclose once they're in the tax lien status, and we kind of just manage it manually from there.
Okay, all right. And you mentioned wellness credits. How does that work?
So those are actually provided by our dental insurance company, Blue Cross Blue Shield. So it's a little extra incentive for Blue Cross handles our health insurance. They also handle our dental and our stop loss. So it's an extra incentive. It allows us to promote wellness amongst our employees. It allows us to bring all of the booths to the benefit fair that we put on. You have the ability to get gift cards and set up different webinars and demonstrations, and that's money that the city just gains for these types of things that we wouldn't be able to afford otherwise.
And then I don't know if you're the person to ask this, but you talked about the health insurance trust fund. Do we know what kind of a percentage increase we're looking at this year for
For health insurance?
health insurance?
Yep, it's a 7.5.
Okay. And that's all I have. Thank you. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Ward 2.
How many properties you say you're going to have an auction on?
17.
17 properties? I got a question. The law's changed on that. How can we have if we go with the thing, if we're selling a property for, say, you get $100,000, and the house was only, the property is only valued $5,000, doesn't the excess money go back to the property owner?
It depends. So some properties that we currently hold as possessions fall before the date that the law took effect. So that still needs to be done through an auction. Anything taken after November of '24 now needs to be done through a Realtor and sold, and we do have to hold the excess equity for the property owner to come and collect.
We have to hold it.
We do.
So my question to you, do we take, because we had that problem on Knott Street, for one of the properties, and I was told that we couldn't keep the proceeds. We had to give the land, we couldn't even give the land away to the next property owner. Had to go on the foreclosures and then advertise it out there
I'm not familiar with the North Street property.
underneath the
I'm not sure if Liz
MBTA
does.
rules.
That is correct. Yeah, anything that's taken after a certain time period, I forget exactly what the date is off the top of my head, but we can't, it makes it almost impossible to do side yard sale with anything new. Because when we do a side yard sale with anything new that falls under this law, that means that we have to get it appraised, basically say we're going to eat that cost, and then we could give it to somebody. But then we have to take whatever that excess equity that is due to that owner and set it aside out of our tax dollars, not sale proceeds, because we'd be giving it away. So side yard sale for new properties doesn't really work anymore.
Yeah.
So is it really worth having an auction if you're going to go through all that? That means you have to give, if the guy doesn't come for 5 years, then it's right to active, he gets interest in everything else towards it.
The parcels
Right?
that we're putting in auction don't fall under the new tax laws.
They don't follow the new tax law, these are all prior? Are they buildable lots?
Some of them are.
Because the law's changed on that too, I think it's 5,000 square feet now, right, Liz?
It depends on what zone. Depends on the zone.
For those
Like-
watching at home, Director Murphy said depends on the zone.
Yeah, I understand that, the zone, but most of the laws are different underneath the Healy administration's new laws. Because they could put property on a 5,000 square feet, if I'm not, no? I know MBTA down there in Knott Street, you can, on 5,000 square feet.
Our zoning allows for that, right? So we have the smaller lots in the denser areas, but in other parts of the city, we might require 10,000 square feet or 7,500, just really depends on which zone in the city. And then, of course, if you have septic and not sewer, then you have to have an even larger lot.
Yeah, I understand that. You told us that you gave out 42 excise taxes or personal property taxes, whatever you want to call it. I thought the assessor's office did that.
No.
No, you guys do it?
Yeah, we handle-
You just collect the money, don't they mail it out?
We actually have a deputy collector who handles mailing out the bills.
Oh, you
And my
don't-
office handles mailing out the tax bills as well as the personal property bills.
Okay, I didn't know that. I thought it was always the assessors, because if I had a problem, I went to see them.
We work closely with them. They provide us the values and the dollar figures, but all of that gets processed through my office.
Okay, you said something about the parking garages and their guy that goes around parking meter guys are responsible for numerous jobs. And you're saying he's responsible for if somebody feces too? He does, is he?
Yep, he cleans that up,
He has to
including
clean
drug.
that up?
Yep, including drug paraphernalia as well.
God. Huh? You don't have no cameras in there to catch the son of a gun so they're doing it, so we can nail them?
We do, and we do work closely with the police department. There have been arrests made for those types of incidents, but we can't
You don't
catch
have them go
all.
back in and clean it up?
No, I don't think so.
No?
Nope.
Not exactly how the law works, Counselor.
Huh?
Not exactly how the law works,
Typically,
unfortunately.
they're on their way to the police station.
Oh, my God, I tell you, we're unbelievable. The educated we get, the worse we get. God. I got a question for you. I don't know, he's probably going to say out of order. My question to you is, can I ask you one question? It might be a personal question, but there's a lot of rumors going around and a lot of other things happening. And why would a person with 27 years quit and go to a lower paying job.
You are absolutely right, Councilor Boishman. We are not going to discuss this. Not relevant to our budget talk or the
It
financial.
is a part of the budget talks.
No, it's not.
Well, I can't ask the questions, they shut me off. I'll probably come back to you on some more questions, though. Go ahead, I yield the floor for now.
Thank you, Councilor. Chair recognizes Councilor Fleming.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to why you chose to read a statement rather than talk about the budget.
I have my numbers here if you would like to discuss them. I think it's important to recognize that we have 8 full-time employees, and I don't necessarily think people recognize exactly the volume we handle on a day-to-day basis. So my choice to do this was to really kind of expose what it is we do and to justify staffing, because 75% of my budget is personnel, which doesn't leave much to cut after the fact.
I'm just curious, what was the maximum they ever had in that department, and when?
I believe it was 10. So in FY '21, we lost a third senior accounting clerk.
The retirement, correct?
Nope. She was cut during the budget crisis in the COVID times, as well as our parking control supervisor. We never backfilled that position for budget purposes, while we still kind of figure out and navigate the waters of parking.
Okay. Thank you. I'm all set.
Thank you, Councilor Fleming. Anyone else over here? Councilor
I
Boishman.
had a question. We cut what's Paul left, never replaced Paul on the budget. And Marcus left and never replaced Marcus on the parking thing. And the reason why we cut one of the positions is because you guys were losing money. You're losing money. That's the way I understood it when we had the last budget. You were in the red. Are we planning on raising the fees? We've been talking about raising the fees for the last, 2, 3 years? Since Calvin Brooks been here, when he was the treasurer. They had a big study. Joe Caddy, big study. That's 10 years ago. Nothing.
I plan on raising the rates. Unfortunately, with every other task that needs to get managed in my office, it's the one that gets put on the back burner, is anything parking. There really isn't staff dedicated to manage the parking division to the extent that it needs to be managed.
All right, because if I'm not mistaken, councilors, the parking garage down the street, on this Main Street, the 2-tier parking lot needs a lot of work. Am I right or wrong? Have we ever thought about selling it and farming that thing? Well, got to get the right terminology today, not farm it at all. Outsourcing it. Outsourcing.
To my knowledge, no, we haven't. To say that it's off the table, it's not. That's something we could explore. It's just not something we've done so far.
So, as of this year, because we got a very, very tight budget, a very tight budget. You already know that. City auditor knows that, and all of us knows that. Is the parking meter situation in the red, still in the red, or is it improving?
It's still in the red. We're not collecting revenue to meet what our expenditures are. With that being said, I have significantly reduced the parking budget, recognizing that we aren't utilizing the dollars, and we don't have time to utilize the dollars the way that they could be spent. So they are expenses that we, in the future, should this ramp up and we can put the appropriate resources to it. However, we're not doing that right now, so there's no sense in budgeting for them if they're not going to get utilized. So the nice thing about the parking budget is it's set up as a receipts reserved. So we take our parking revenues and the monies that we collect, and we put that money aside in a separate account, and then we allocate those funds. So like in FY '26, we allocated $120,000 from the parking revenues to supplement the general funds budget. This year, we're going to put $140,000 in, because on average, we collect about $140,000 to $160,000, and that's at the current revenues that we have already. I have been going through the parking ordinances. I'm working with the city solicitor and have a fee structure in place. It's just now kind of fine tuning it, making sure it makes sense. It's a massive overhaul, and I'm hoping to present that to council
Yeah, but
soon.
when?
Whenever I can. I mean,
If you run a household, like I own an apartment house, if I'm not making money to make repairs, how can we sustain what we're doing? If you can't draw the lines in some of your parking garages, or you don't know where you're parking, so you can't utilize all the parking spaces because this guy's parked over here, this guy's parked on the other half and half, this guy, now you get no place to park. So you lost 3, 4 parking spaces making money. I don't understand why, I have a hard time to understand why the city will wait so long to invest money, to do something right, so we can have money, so we can make repairs. Because for the next 5 years, according to the audit report that we got, we're going to be strapped. And this is going to be a very tight budget. There's going to be a lot of big surprises coming. A lot of big surprises.
like I mentioned, it's a resource-constrained division of my department. There is no one dedicated to the administrative pieces of the parking division. That has to fall on my plate, and that is, has to fall behind getting payroll out. It has to fall behind paying our vendors, has to fall behind tax bills, and everything else that we do throughout the year, unfortunately. And that's every treasurer that's before me. That's the problem, is we just don't have the resources and the people dedicated to the time it takes to run the parking.
Yeah, but I just don't understand why you would take $140,000 and put it in the general funds to balance the books when the parking garage needs repairs. That doesn't logic to me. I'm just baffled by it. It's like saying I need a new roof, but I'm going to give it to you guys for taxes, and the bills are falling apart.
It's either pay for the expenses to run it through the general fund or offset it with the revenues we collect from parking.
Crazy. I yield the floor right now. I'll save the rest of my question. I'll save the rest of my question for budget time.
Okay,
That's what I'll do.
that is your right. President Trella.
Thank you. I think you mostly answered this already, but I just wanted to, touching on the parking fee updates and so forth, I completely understand that you've got a lot to do and stuff gets pushed to the back burner. Since the adjustment of the fee structure is principally a legislative task, I just wanted to ask if there's anything we can do to help move that forward.
Absolutely. If you're willing to review it and maybe look at some of my notes, the problem is I'm not, my background isn't parking. And although I feel like I'm now at a point where I know enough and I understand it, it's really just taking the time to go through it and change it. So one big challenge we face is our ordinance is very structured towards parking meters. And that is something of the past. We're trying to phase meters out and bring in mobile parking resources. You need to redo the entire ordinance and change every part that says parking meter to parking or some other verbiage. So,
Touch base, I'd be happy to help.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Councilor Walsh.
I yield the floor.
Councilor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I kind of know the answer to this question. When you were talking about maybe, updating the parking system, the timeline for that is probably going to depend on, how much time you have available to do that. Is that right?
So I've actually vetted 3 different companies. We've really been trying to figure out, from a procurement standpoint, the best way to bring on a parking resource. So we have one picked out, we have what we think we want. It's now just kind of coming up with the actual contract and how we're going to move forward with paying for that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
I yield the floor.
Thank you, Councilor. And a note for you, Mr. President, that does seem like a job for your particular set of skills, I would say. So I would encourage you to collaborate with the president, Michaela. Most of everything I was going to ask, I had a bunch of notes here as you were going through your speech, has been touched on by my colleagues. From an overall perspective, your office, and I know I've mentioned this before, and it's not you or your team, your office is just stretched thin. There's just not enough time in the day, and there's too much going on. And this isn't this current administration. I brought this up with your predecessor in the previous administration. Even things like payroll that are typically handled by HR are still funneling through your office. Has there been any thought of sort of shifting responsibilities around, or are we set in our ways now?
Typically, payroll isn't handled through HR.
No?
Nope, not usually in municipalities. It's actually, in my case, in places I've been, handled either in the treasurer's office or the auditor's office.
Okay.
Payroll really isn't burdensome. I think it's just not having enough staff to manage the services at which we need to provide. We help people with their mortgages when their taxes get messed up, because that happens from time to time. We educate people on liens. We go as far as we're the first face that some people who experience loss see from a financial perspective when they have to process a life insurance claim. So it's really the service piece that's hard to keep up with, along with all of the administrative tasks that need to take place.
That's a perfect segue to my next question. Would it be valuable, I asked previously with the clerk, you're another very public-facing department. You're right there as soon as you walk in City Hall, clerk's on the left, you're on the right. Would it make sense to take a day or a period of a day every week just for administrative purposes and sort of close that window for a little while as a cost-saving measure and also an efficiency measure? It might be a little bit tough for residents at first, but if it's improving our services and lowering our costs, I think it's worth talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm open to the idea of doing that. I think it would be very helpful for my staff. I don't necessarily think that it would help offset the volume of services we need to provide, but I do think it could be explored.
Even just as a organizational tool, because if you're constantly getting pulled to the window where your staff is, it's very difficult to be productive. But we also want to make sure that we're available. And yeah, like I said, I think everything else was touched on. You knew I was going to comment parking. I probably still will, but I'm glad to hear that we're making some changes there since this will be the third year in a row, I think, that I'll try to make cuts to parking. So I'm glad that that's already being addressed. And I will yield the floor to Councillor Boschman and then Councillor Fleming.
You want to put his?
I'm just really quickly on parking. Do you think that there's been a decrease in parking funds because of everything that's been going on Main Street?
Absolutely. I think we have had a decrease in funds because we didn't backfill the parking control supervisor position. That hit our meter line very heavily, because now people know that there aren't two bodies enforcing. There's just one. I do think that the construction people aren't necessarily staying as long. They're looking, I think they're using the parking lots more than they are the parking on the streets. I think it's just we don't have enough manpower out there enforcing the parking as to the level that we need to.
I'm not even sure if you need to enforce parking, because I've got to be honest with you. I have no problem finding parking on this street any time of the day, which tells me there's nobody's coming downtown yet because of everything that's going on. Because it is a little out of sorts. And so we may not need those things. We may not need that parking meter person right now, because there's really not enough happening down here yet until everything's done to require one, I guess. Because, again, I have not had any problem ever coming on Main Street, these side streets, anything, finding parking. It's been very easy no matter what time of day I come. So, and years ago, it wasn't that way. It wasn't that way, so.
Our parking meter person is also the one who cleans our garages. He's also the one that works with me to coordinate maintenance and inspections that have to happen. So enforcement is not the only thing that he does.
Shovels the sidewalk, shovel the steps.
That's an interesting job description, but I yield the floor.
Counselor Bushman.
To touch on her, you didn't tell her, they also just don't stick around downtown and Grove Street and the back roads up here, because they got parking there, because Paul used to come up to Clegon to give tickets, parking on the sidewalk. He used to go up there at Clarendon Street and Daniel Street to give tickets, so it's not just this area, because I used to call up and they send them up and they write tickets, so I'm letting you guys know that. But you're talking about overworked, and you're talking about not having enough employees. So I'll tell you a little idea. Where I used to work at this company, richest company in the world at that time, not now, but that time, they found out payroll. They outsourced payroll. They outsourced it because they could get it done cheaper than what they could do it in-house. So they outsourced it. And they passed all their time cards, and maybe we ought to think about that, because I am going to make a proposal, time cards, where people punch in when they're here and punch out, punch in, punch out, punch in, and when they go home, punch out. So they get paid for what they do. And then we give it to them and they solve all their problems. And you don't have to worry about payroll at all. Nothing. If there's a problem, you have the 1-800 number or the number they got, and you call them up. There's no problems.
Outsourcing,
Outsourcing. I can't use farm out anymore because it's not an educated word. So it's outsourcing.
outsourcing payroll doesn't outsource the heavy load of payroll. So we still have to provide them with the data. It's still the employees coming to the payroll and benefits department to make direct deposit changes, W-4 changes, insurance updates, et cetera. So we're still supplying them with all of the data. That's the most time-consuming part of the payroll process. We're still giving them the timesheets, which is the most complicated, time-consuming part of the payroll process. They're just doing the easier part of it and actually processing it, filing our 941s and sending out W-2s, but we do all of that in-house, and that's not the hard part.
All right. I just thought I'd throw that out there. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Councilor. President Zarella.
This might be something that's already being done, but when Councillor Fleming was talking, I had the thought, has any consideration been given with respect to parking enforcement and so forth, to trying to identify specific areas of the service area, specific sections of the service area where parking enforcement is actually more needed, and spend time on those and not on the others? Because I agree, there are some segments of Main Street where, honestly, if someone parks in a 2-hour parking spot for 5 hours, they're not taking up anyone's spot because there's no one else taking the rest of the spots. But then there are other sections, like at least not taking the construction into account, but near the Upper Common, there are times of day when that can be quite busy, and when people staying too long in their spots causes a real problem. I'm just curious if there's been any effort to identify sort of the high utilization versus low utilization areas, and maybe only check the low utilization areas a couple times a day, but check the high utilization areas once every couple of hours or something like that.
We do already implement a strategy similar to that. It's really finding time to kind of note back to Councillor Fleming saying it's a very odd job description. It is. There's a lot of really time-consuming tasks that need to get done. All of them need to get done at the same time. You can't scan license plates and check parking meters and clean the garages at the same time. Cleanliness in the garages is one of our major complaints. That being said, I don't know if Liz wants to come up and speak, but we are doing a parking study. And we are looking into all different avenues regarding parking. and how we can just better manage it and what we can do moving forward to make it a more profitable division.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. Like I said, I was fully aware that this might have already been a thing being done. I just wanted to see what your thoughts on it were.
Yeah, and I would just add, we do have this parking study that's happening right now that's looking at parking for the future, but also parking for today. It's a challenging time to do the parking study because of the construction that's happening, so they're actually looking at what the utilization was right before the construction started, like the year before the construction started. They're looking back at satellite photos of where people were parking then to kind of get a better sense of like typical usage, as well as coming out here now and counting. So, but it's an interesting dynamic between the metered, the on-street parking, and then you have a kind of a very different system happening in the parking garages with between the fees and, you know, come in and pay as you park.
Hey, ask them if it costs money.
Hold on one second. You're all set, Counselor?
All set, thank you.
Yes, then, Counselor Boishman?
This study you're having, does it cost money? Do we have to pay for it?
We received a grant.
Huh?
Actually, we didn't even, we received a grant, but we received it in the form of consultant services. So the grant, the cash didn't come to us. There's no processing of the cash. It's just, we applied and we got a consultant, basically, as our grant funds.
So may I ask you guys a question? Because I get amazed. I've been sitting on this seat for 10 years, and I'm amazed. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, parking study done. Nothing happened. Tom S., parking study done. Nothing happened. You said you were doing one, and now you're doing one. So 4 parking studies in 10 years, 11 years, or even 12. That's 3 a year. And nothing happens. It's like we're throwing money out the window.
Oh, the previous parking study that you said was done by Tom wasn't
I mean, it's a
actually,
Walker study.
that was not conducted by the city. That was conducted by a consultant for the theater block that Tom was participating in.
Okay. All right.
And it was really looking at, is there enough parking in the area to justify, or not justify, to accommodate a theater during the theater plan. So it was really connected to that.
And just for clarification, I'm not doing a parking study. We are both actively involved in one parking study.
Right.
No, I just was wondering how many parking studies we're going to do. We never implement any of them. It's a waste of time.
This will be the time we implement it.
I wasn't here for the times that we did the other parking studies, so.
They predate me as well.
Further questions from community members? You all set, Counselor?
Well, as long as he can, go ahead.
Mr. President, all yours.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that by my recollection, at least, the prior full parking study that was done, not the theater block one, was not was not strategy oriented. It was capacity oriented, if I recall correctly. It was designed to see how much parking capacity we had downtown to service development that we were trying to drive. Whereas this, if I'm understanding correctly, is a more strategy-oriented parking study in terms of what can we do with what we have.
It's both. It's looking at current need and future need. And we'll certainly be taking that information and applying that as the, parking changes unfold.
So yes, thank you. That's what I assumed. So I guess what I'm saying is, I think the reason the prior one was never implemented is because there wasn't necessarily anything to implement from it. It was just statistical. It was, this is what we have, this is what we can support. There weren't action items, to my recollection, in that prior parking study. So, I just wanted to give that as a point of historical clarification.
Thank you, Mr. President. Seeing no further questions, I think we're ready to move on to Director Murphy. Yes? Okay. Thank you very much, Treasurer Horn. Appreciate your time.